Soul Not For Sale podcast. Had to do the soft claps. Cannot wake up the baby. The wife would be so mad. Man, God bless women that can just put babies to sleep, man. I've tried it before. It took me like an hour and a half. It's crazy, the fact that she does stuff like that. Anyways, guys, Soul Not For Sale. Coach Colin here. We got Tucker Carlson on the warpath. It is crazy what Tucker Carlson is doing. Crazy in a good way. Noble. It is so good. He's on tour, and he might as well be calling this the Destroy Kamala Harris tour, because what he's doing is stopping off in various states, having conversations with people, and basically pointing his gaze, pointing his laser focus towards Kamala Harris. So I got clips from Megyn Kelly's appearance, Glen, Beck, Tulsi Gabbard, Vivek, RFK Jr. He hasn't even gotten to Roseanne yet. Do you know what's going to happen when he gets to Roseanne? She's going to go off. But right now, I want to play what Tucker Carlson has been doing, because this is his way of campaigning for Donald Trump, and God bless him for it. Let's get into the first one. Megyn Kelly basically ripping into Taylor Swift for endorsing Kamala Harris. Here's why. Let's get into it.
Apparently endorsed Kamala Harris just the other day. Will have, I know. I'm not here to endorse Taylor Swift, trust me. Will this have an effect? What's the significance of this?
I don't know whether it will have an effect. I mean, supposedly some 350,000 people have rushed to some website to register to vote or to express interest in potentially doing that. But young people don't generally vote. And I don't think people who at this point in the election cycle had not registered to vote are not going to do it because of Taylor Swift. But let's set that to the side. Screw you, Taylor Swift. That's how I would like to begin. This woman has got she's a billionaire. I saw her amazing mansion in Rhode Island. I went to some hotel there, and there it is up on a cliff. You've never seen a more beautiful home. It's one of, 20? She's got so many gifts thanks to all of you. Thanks to your daughters, who you probably had to drag to her concerts, and you want to make your daughter happy, and so you did it, and it's true whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. And how does she thank this nation? She turns around, not only does she pick a side in a hotly contested presidential election, alienating at least half of her fan base, but she says the reason she's voting for Kamala Harris is because of Tim Walz's LGBTQ stance. Do you know what Tim Walz has done on the LGBTQ front? Let me tell you what's going to happen. Okay? Here's what's going to happen. A little girl sitting in Wisconsin who's maybe on the spectrum, maybe has acne, maybe is a little heavy set, maybe feels upset because her parents are getting divorced, something like that, is going to find herself down a rabbit hole on Reddit. And her parents aren't going to know because they're getting a divorce and they're not focused on her right now. And she's going to spend hour after hour on that thing, and Reddit's going to tell her she's actually a boy. And she's going to get sucked into this gender cult. And she's going to say, Mom and Dad, I want puberty blockers into cross-sex hormones, which will sterilize her and deprive her of all sexual pleasure for the rest of her life. And they're going to say, no, you're a girl. And she's going to say, but I want top surgery, this benign thing, this double mastectomy. I'll have tubes coming out of me and I'll never breastfeed a child. I want that too, because I'm a boy. And they're going to say no. And she's going to go to a judge in Minnesota, and because of Tim Walz, the court will take custody of her, use the Medicaid funds in Minnesota to provide her all of those things, chop off her breasts, sterilize her with the puberty blockers into the cross-sex hormones. And when this girl inevitably comes to the conclusion that she didn't want any of this, that it only added to her problems, which were the divorce and the acne and the puberty and not any trans issue, who is she going to go to then? This is all because of Tim Walz. That's what Minnesota is doing right now to little girls and boys, taking custody away from the parents so that they can have these procedures without any loving parent there to help. And that's what Taylor Swift just endorsed for your children. So screw you, Taylor Swift.
Wow. I wonder if she's actually going to tell us how she actually feels. Like, I hope we get to that part. But that is true. Look it up. Tim Walz is terrible in that regard, or good, depending on what side of everything you're on. But it's wild what he's approved. And the fact that that's Taylor Swift's reasoning only shows that this is more about publicity and virtue signaling and getting attention onto Kamala Harris and her campaign than anything, because Taylor Swift's a billionaire. She's not going to like what Kamala has in store for her at all. Let's get into the next clip of Megyn Kelly talking about this.
Streets endlessly. I mean, that's civil war, banana republic shit that we'd have to fight. Not calling for violence, but saying this would require every street in America to be filled with people.
Civil disobedience.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, that is a stated goal. They've said that repeatedly, getting 16-year-olds to vote, having millions of illegal aliens vote, and expanding the court. They've all said that out loud. Do you think they will try the last one? Packing it.
To pack the court? Depends on what November looks like. If they win, how big is the victory?
Right.
You know, if it's razor tight, I don't think they'd have the guts. I don't think so. But if she goes in there thinking she has a mandate, it's a terrifying thought. It could happen. It could happen. This is not Trump's locked up. He doesn't have it locked up yet. So people need to be really clear about what could be coming our way if she wins, and get to the polls. Get your friends to the polls. Get a bus and get everyone you know in swing states to the polls. And if she wins and thinks she has a mandate and starts doing the things she said she would do, go look at her ACLU questionnaire. That, to his credit, Andrew Kaczynski over at CNN unearthed. And see what she wants to do about defunding ICE and making the entire country a sanctuary city. She said it. Using your taxpayer dollars to fund sex change operations for prisoners and illegal immigrants. The country will change dramatically, and we'll have to use every tool in our arsenal to fight it, and that would definitely include lawfare. You know, challenges with the current Supreme Court to stop what they're going to try to do to it.
How would you assess her record in office as, say, Attorney General of the state of California? She refers to that a lot. My read as a non-lawyer, non-legal expert is that she doesn't have limits in her behavior. She seems totally happy to prosecute people she doesn't like because she doesn't like them.
She's your worst nightmare, Tucker, because she loves to go after the little guy, like the drug users, you know, people with these small petty crimes. And that's what she did, trying to convince people she was tough on crime as a San Francisco DA and then as California Attorney General. And then as soon as she got on the national board, she abandoned all that, started bailing out BLM rioters, started to go hardcore the other way, backing people like Kim Foxx, you know, the Soros prosecutor in Chicago and so on, flipped all the way over the other way, and is truly the daughter of a Marxist and has Marxist tendencies herself, and is as far left as you can find. I mean, she's the most leftist presidential candidate we have ever had. I think she's farther to the left than Bernie Sanders.
That's not what I read.
Without his charm.
I read that she was the source of all joy. Have you read that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hear.
Yeah.
Although they've gotten rid of the joy since they had to kill the cackle.
The cat memes are my favorite. It's still a creative country.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
It's amazing.
Have you seen the TikToks? Then they're killing cats and they're killing dogs. That's a new cat meme.
They're eating the pets. That's really, that was the high point in American politics. I mean that too. So Kamala Harris, as not to go over what we just saw like in the last 2 months, but how exactly did she become the Democratic nominee without anyone voting for her? Is that, how can that happen?
I've never seen somebody so good at failing upward. Right? It's amazing. I know you're not allowed to talk about this, but she slept her way into California politics. It's true. I don't say it to be mean, I say it because it's true. She slept with Willie Brown.
Which is its own skill, I gotta say.
I mean, maybe she just found him so, he was so full of magnetism. He was 30 years older than she was.
I said she had no talents. I mean, that was not fair.
And he paved her way. He paved her way into California politics. He helped her get elected as San Francisco DA. And once you're in that system as a far left Dem, you're good. Of course you're going to become the senator from that state when the opportunity presents itself, never mind the identity politics aspect of it. And before you knew it, Joe Biden was running around promising people he'd add a black woman to the ticket because James Clyburn said you're not going to win South Carolina unless you do that. So he did it, and now she's our vice president. And then he falls apart after the big cover up, and next thing you know, she's out there an empty vessel pretending she's the next Obama. Do you guys know that there was a report by Mark Halperin, who's very tied into these Democrat circles, that before the Democratic National Convention speech, she was prepped by CAA, Creative Artists Agency, the biggest Hollywood agency there is, Brian Lord, who runs it, and top Hollywood talent on how to deliver her lines, how to nail her speech. Now, what are the odds that she, when she was hauled up for those 5 or 6 days preparing for the debate, didn't have help like that? That's what she's got. If you're the Republican candidate, you show up, you've got both of the moderators and your opponent against you, you get interrupted in every answer, you get fact-checked erroneously in every answer, you get the moderator's opinion coming at you as a fact check, you get follow-ups on everything. If you try to dodge or weave at all, they will nail you to the floor. But if you're Kamala Harris and you've said everything there is to say about fracking and then show up and say, I've always been consistent, it's, thank you, Madam President.
Megyn Kelly shining through. I'm telling you, Tucker brings this out of every person that we've gone over at the beginning of this. And just so you know, in regards to that debate, so let's move on to the next clip. Regards to that debate, the woman was actually her sorority sister. That woman was Kamala Harris's, what was her name? Lindsay Davis, I believe. That was her sorority sister. What's going on? Why is it so blatant? They just don't even care. Couldn't they have got someone that wasn't her sorority sister and said, hey, you're going to do this and this? They just right in our face are just like, who cares? They're best friends. They look the same. Who cares? Screw it. Just put her in there. Absolutely wild. Just so you know, in regards to Taylor Swift, this was also happening as well. People are very upset with Taylor Swift.
Harris, and I'm done. I don't want to be a childish cat lady like her. If you really love the cats, you wouldn't let the migrants eat them as pets. That's why I'm replacing all my stuff with end the wokeness stuff.
Oh. Gotta let her put on the hat. There you go. That's happening left and right. And again, you know, somebody even made a cartoon, you know, I will vote for Kamala. She's like, would you like to pay a 25% unrealized gain tax? And she's like, what? She doesn't even know. She's like, you know, talk about empty vessels. Taylor Swift is just an empty vessel as well. Like, people always talk about celebrities who make money, like as if they're some savvy, smart person. They just have dozens of people around them who tell them what to do. And if they don't listen, the people around them, the celebrity deep state, does it anyway, and they keep them in the dark. She was told what to say. That's it. You think she wrote that thing up that she said on Instagram? You're crazy. Let's move on to Glen, Beck, ladies and gentlemen. Tucker Carlson going in on Kamala Harris once again. Let's go.
That's just not what we do. And I think that really scared them.
How many times have you done an interview with somebody who halfway through the interview, you just notice their shark eyes and you're like, you're not even listening to me.
Yes.
You're right. And it is terrifying to see that. You are a powerful interviewer that people trust. You have an agenda and you're not even listening. You're just thinking, how do I get him here? How do I get him here? That is just so evil.
I always blame Xanax, but you're right. I think it
might be.
Well, it definitely is. Like, our entire leadership class is just high as hell. They're so medicated, and you have to ask what percentage of our leaders are on a mind-altering drug, and I would say it's an overwhelming majority.
This is a prime example of disinformation. For instance, tell me, has anybody left a bag of cocaine at the White House?
I look at Kamala Harris, and as someone who grew up in a neighborhood with a lot of divorced rich ladies in Southern California, I just know that look, which is like, I can't even hear you, man. I'm so high right now. I see that in her face, and I don't know that.
I heard a friend of mine say she's America's wine mom.
Yeah.
That she is, like
but
4
too much
glasses
wine.
in.
Too much wine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there have been some questions online about why.
Man, I love it. Tucker Carlson is going just, he's not playing around in regards to this stuff. Let's play another clip here. Actually, let's move on to Tulsi Gabbard really quick because she has a lot to say. It's pretty much, I'm sure you guys heard about Tulsi getting put on the terrorist watch list. That quiet list. I forget what it's called, Quiet Storm or something like that. But she got put on a watch list. And it was only after she decided to endorse Trump. Again, the administration is just doing things like this to Trump supporters. Now, I'm going to have her talk a little bit about, what she feels about Kamala Harris. But, just so you know, that's what happened to her. She is on this list. And, the last time she was put on some list or thought to be someone that needed to be looked at was when she went against Hillary Clinton, and Hillary Clinton decided to say that she was a Russian asset with zero proof,
Aloha.
Aloha. I love that you came with a lei. That's so great.
Gotta represent.
So I have to, I just feel like I brought up Cheney. There are a lot of bad people in the world. I don't think Cheney's the worst person in the world in the running, but I could think of others. But I don't want that event, the Cheney endorsement, the family endorsement of Kamala Harris, of all people, to pass by without examining its significance. This feels like, if historians were honest, this is an event that they would write about 50 years from now, when the actual architecture of the world became clear to everybody. This is what's really going on. This is how it really works. But I'll stop and ask you what you think of it.
I have a very simple message for my Democrat friends, my independent friends, those who may not be sure about who they're voting for in this election. Dick Cheney has just made the choice very clear. A vote for Kamala Harris is a vote for Dick Cheney, the architect of everything that has gone wrong in the Middle East for the last few decades. And so it's interesting because if you listen to the New York Times or some of the other mainstream media, they're saying, don't expect much from Kamala Harris in the way of policies and details and plans, and we're not going to know much about what kind of president she's going to be because she doesn't have much time. They're conveniently ignoring the fact that she's been there working in the White House the last 3.5 years alongside Joe Biden. She's been the last one in the room, according to her, as these big decisions are being made. But we look at who she says, her response to the Dick Cheney announcement today was that she was honored to have his endorsement. And we got military veterans in the house. Got a lot of you who probably served in the Middle East like I did. And so it sickened me, Tucker, to read those words today, both from Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney, and Kamala Harris, because we have people who we care very much about who were killed in those wars because of Dick Cheney. Kamala Harris has told us all we need to know about what kind of commander-in-chief she would be. And I don't know about you, but I would not trust her for a moment with the lives of my brothers and sisters in uniform.
You couldn't trust her with anything. Or you couldn't, Biden couldn't trust her with the border. I'm not saying it like the border's a simple thing, but all you had to do was leave it alone. You could just leave everything Trump did alone and you would have been fine. And the fact that they didn't, that, in my opinion, it just shows there was a little bit of a malicious intent of some kind. Can't say what, but, those people in Ohio, how they register to vote? Well, all they have to do is enter their name. If they don't have a social, they're told to just put zeros in. Guess what else they do? They put in the number of their driver's license. And you're like, well, they can't have driver's license. Well, you're wrong. I was just talking to somebody, an interview will be up soon, who's actually in Ohio, in Springfield, where the Haitians are, and they are being given licenses. They are being given numbers like that. So they actually could register the vote if they want to. So this town of 58,000 now has 20,000 people who will probably vote blue if they even register. Just saying. Again, no idea why you would do that to the border, right? You can trust Kamala. Don't worry, guys. Anyway, let's get into the next clip of Tulsi Gabbard here.
Was on that targeting package. And unbeknownst to me, had a little bit of an idea, but unbeknownst to me, for those last week and a half or 2 weeks, I had at least 3 federal air marshals following me and traveling with me everywhere I went. And there were K-9 teams, there were EOD teams. I was getting swabbed for traces of explosives, not only in the initial going through TSA, but again before even boarding the plane at the gate. I told the guys at the gate, I was like, they just checked me like 10 minutes ago. We got to do it again. It's not them. Clearly, this was an act of political retaliation for my criticisms and warning the country about what kind of dangerous President Commander-in-Chief Kamala Harris would be. And so this is still going on today. Sometimes I get the Quad S, sometimes I don't, but I've heard from people who have confirmed that my targeting package is still operational.
So, I mean, you're an Army officer, we're a sitting member of the United States Congress, you're a presidential candidate, and you're on the terror watch list. So, and there's nothing you can do about it. So how is that different from any other secret police force in any other country?
This is the thing, it's not. It's not. And if we had an attorney general who cared about our freedom, our civil liberties, about the integrity of a democratic republic where we can speak our mind and express ourselves and criticize our own government, guaranteed by our First Amendment right, perhaps our Attorney General and the FBI would be investigating these acts of abuse of power and political retaliation.
Well, yeah, because if you boil it down, what it means is if you criticize Kamala Harris, people with guns follow you around.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not the only one. I mean, there's an FBI agent who was a whistleblower because he could not stomach anymore what he was seeing, which was how the FBI was being told to send out heavily armed SWAT teams to go and kick down doors of peaceful pro-life protesters in the middle of the night. This abuse of power and how even the very first counterterrorism head of counterterrorism the FBI had, he is retired now, but he came out and said it sickens him because the FBI has essentially become the police arm of the Democratic Party. So how is this any different from Venezuela or any other country that's being run by a dictator or an authoritarian leader? And so the hypocrisy is so rich. Again, going back to the Cheneys, they say that they have to vote for Kamala Harris because Donald Trump is the greatest threat to our democracy. I don't know how they say this with a straight face. I really don't.
When the current regime has a secret police force that has people with guns hassle its critics, that imprisons its critics,
yes,
that tries to silence half the country for criticizing them, but Trump, because he criticizes them, is the main threat to democracy. I mean,
and he has the audacity to talk about things like, hey, we should not be waging regime change wars.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, if I knew that, I wouldn't be on Trump's side. I didn't realize that's what he's done. The audacity. But that was her just breaking down. If you don't know, she said something about a target package. Apparently, the TSA, there was someone who came forward and said that there is a targeting package. So it's basically just letting them know this is a person that you're going to target. You know, what's been happening to her is every single time she jumps on a plane, she gets the whole search through. They say it's at random, but it happens to her every single time. It happened about 7 times in a row. And this, again, only happened when she decided to endorse Donald Trump. That's when it started happening. So I'm just gonna just throw out something here, just a little crazy. You know, my tinfoil Speedo is on. I'm going to say it's not quite so random. Let's move on to the Vivek Ramaswamy, ladies and gentlemen. Tucker Carlson goes off.
Of what you're part of now, which is an effort to save the country. But I think we're falling for it, for sure. Yeah. The idea that Kamala Harris is like an actual person, I'm sure she can fog a mirror, but beyond that, she's just a cipher. She'll be whatever you want her to be. Pay her enough, she'll be a radical vegan or anti-circumcision activist or whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. She might even build a wall.
100%.
Claim she wants to.
100%. You know, she's a kind of sad puppet, clearly unhappy, terrified. I mean, I know benzodiazepine use when I see it, and I'm like, that chick's had some Xanax, just vacant. She's afraid. She wakes up afraid every morning, and you can tell the people who are afraid, which is a lot of people, and she's chief among the fearful. But anyway, the Republicans fell for it. The leadership fell for it. They're falling for it now. And they also fell, and I hope you'll flesh this out a little bit, they fell for the idea that the media act independently of the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that that's a trap we have repeatedly fallen into over the last 8 years. But I just think this idea, it's not an accident that you get Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. There are a lot of intelligent people who are, believe it or not, intelligent people. They have a high IQ, brain power. They can make their own decisions. They're thinkers who are Democrats, people on the left, ideologues, who people like you and I might disagree with, but some of whom you and I might actually be friends with because we respect them even though we disagree with them. It's not an accident that you get Joe Biden and then a Kamala Harris and then the next puppet they put up. Biden has cognitive deficits, right? Those are not a bug. They are a feature for the people who control him. Kamala Harris has a different kind of deficit. She has policy deficits, cognitive deficits, you could argue. Those are also, again, not a bug. They're a feature for the people who actually operate the puppet. And so I think that it's going to be a losing game unless we see ourselves as running against that system. And I think this is actually going to be, let's assume victory here, right? Let's fast forward. It's not just winning the election. It's actually, are we actually going to do what conservatives, Republicans, when they've governed, have long failed to do? I think the real myth we've fallen into is this trap of believing that we can reform this system, that we're going to reform the deep state, that we're going to fire Christopher Wray or whoever at the top of the FBI and put in a new figurehead on top, that we're going to reform the bureaucracy. And I think that reform is just a myth. Right? It's impossible. We're not running against, it's not that Christopher Wray is an individual bad actor at the top of the FBI. He's just another cog in the system, just like Kamala Harris, just like Joe Biden. And so the question for us, the real test for us, I think, Tucker, is not going to be the election in November. It is going to be whether we have the spine to actually see through and do the hard thing that we've never done before. Nobody's done it. No, Donald Trump in his first term is the closest we've gotten. But nobody's really stepped up and said, no. Are we actually going to try to reform and massage this thing to incrementally window dress it and advance our own goals? Or are we actually going to get in there and to shut it down? And I think that is the one answer that will save this country. And I'm supporting Donald Trump because I believe he's the man who is going to be the best suited to get that job done. But the real test comes not in November, but after that to me.
I can't wait. Man, I hope some talk about Vivek taking the Ohio senator role. I hope he doesn't. I hope he stays right in the administration. That's where he's needed. His voice is needed there. As much as you needed his voice in this video, or they needed his voice in that stadium or theater that they're in, you definitely need Vivek's voice in the current administration. Now, of course, we are going to end it off. And just to say a little quick thing, there was something that was mentioned before about Kamala Harris talking about defunding ICE. That's 100% true. She actually compared ICE to the KKK when she was talking to the director of ICE. She was saying how the perception is that you guys are like the KKK. Are you aware of that perception? And he was like, no, what? And she was like, there's a perception. There's a perception, actually. There is a perception. It was the most nonsensical thing I have ever seen. Comparing people who keep the country secure from bad actors getting in is comparable to the KKK somehow. Is she saying that the KKK like keeps people safe from black people? Like, what does she say? How does she picture either of those things? It's absolutely amazing. But at the end of the day, she doesn't actually think that they're reminiscent of that organization. It's just a play for control. How do we bring down the structures? That's been her whole focus ever since she's been in politics. She took down Willie Brown, and she's had her sights set on all sorts of institutions in America. Let's get into RFK saying things only someone like him could say in such a great way. Let's listen to this.
And the hatred. I think we have to stop hating each other. But I don't, from the statements that Kamala Harris makes and that her vice president makes, I don't think they have a clear vision of what the country's supposed to look like. I don't think they understand the First Amendment. I don't think they understand the Constitution. I saw Kamala, at the convention, and she gave a speech that was very bellicose and belligerent. It was a kind of speech that was written by neocons and the CIA. The first time in history, they had a CIA former director speaking right before her, Leon Panetta. They had military people speaking at the Democratic Convention. The Democratic Convention was a Democrat with the anti-war party. They were the pro-Constitution party. They were the party that was against Wall Street and against and representing the little guys, the cops, the firefighters, union and labor people. And I talked to you about this on the show last week. In the 2020 election, roughly 50% of the people in this country voted for Donald Trump. But that group that voted for Donald Trump represented 30% of the wealth in our country. The 50% of the people that voted for Joe Biden represented 70% of the wealth. There's been an inversion now where the Republican Party has become the party of the common man, of working people, of the middle class. And the Democratic Party has become the party of Wall Street, of the military-industrial complex, of big pharma, big agriculture, big tech, the big banking systems, and all of what Donald Trump calls the deep state, which is this web of financial interests that is not necessarily a little conspiracy, but it's a conspiracy of self-interest that functions together in tandem to shift wealth upward, to clamp down totalitarian controls, and to transform this country from the world's exemplary democracy into a corporate kleptocracy and a very, very oppressive oligarchical system, the kind of system that we fought a revolution to overthrow in 1776.
RFK, listen, man, I'll just say it, okay, before I get into anything else. Trump gets rid of J.D. Vance. Here, let me finish. He gets rid of J.D. Vance. He says J.D. has a cold. He's sick. He's sick. Happens all the time. Happened to Biden, right? He's sick. RFK steps in as the VP. It's a landslide victory. Whenever I hear RFK speak, I'm like, man, if Trump wasn't around, I would be like, that might just be the guy. If it was RFK versus Vivek, I don't know. I don't know what happens in that situation. I don't know. But RFK definitely deserves more respect. Ever since he started campaigning for Trump, he's been getting way more airtime. He's been getting to speak, and the things that he has been saying have become way more powerful because he's not thinking about you know, how am I going to play to this audience, that audience, trying to be in the middle, trying to pull from Trump, trying to pull from Biden. Now he just gets to speak. He knows that if Trump gets in, he gets to be in the position he needs to be in to help the children, to help people's health. So now he's just kind of letting it fly in such a great way. I love to see it. Man, Tucker Carlson bringing the heat. This is not just the Republican Avengers. This is the whole Republican universe. I mean, everybody's showing up. Everybody's showing up. Even some people from DC. That's what RFK and Tulsi Gabbard are. You know, they're like the X-Men that show up in the universe. Like, how'd you get here? Oh, there's a time portal. Doctor Strange let us in. There you go, man. I love it. It's absolutely amazing. Everything he said, you know, that whole thing he said about, I didn't see this speech, but doesn't it say it all that there's a CIA director and then she goes on and speaks? They're on the same list of speakers? Doesn't that say enough? I don't know, man. There's so much here. It's just so crazy. I'm glad Tucker Carlson is doing this. Again, this is his way of campaigning for Donald Trump. So great shout out to him. There are many more dates in this tour that he's doing. Again, I'm going to try and be at the Texas one. I think that's where I'm going to try and show up. If I can interview Tucker, that'd be great. If I can even get like, you know, just like a minute interview, that'd be amazing. But there's so many more dates. You guys should check it out. It's all over his website. It's all over his videos. They're talking about it so much. And I think they're even offering, what does it say? Get tickets now. Yeah, this was in Anaheim. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of dates because they're doing one. I believe it's every day of September. So right now it's the 14th. We have another, 15? Another 15 to go, 16 to go. There's a lot of opportunity there for you to get your tickets and actually sit in on this whole thing. I think the main thing is you get to hear some incredible speakers, of course. You get to hear Tucker give his speech, of course. And it's always a different speech. Every single place he goes, the speech is always different. It's incredible. But also you get to have the energy. You know, I think this is almost like there's a Trump rally, and then what Tucker's doing is like a subsection of a Trump rally. It's the same people, it's the same type of energy, but they're really focusing in on what the problem is and how people need to get together at the voting, at the ballots, and really make a difference. So amazing to see. And, you know, who doesn't want to hear Tucker Carlson accuse Kamala Harris of being high? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? I got to see that live. I don't know about you. Anyways, guys, like, subscribe, turn on the notifications. Other than that, I'm out.